Hello and welcome to Resolutionary Leaders. I'm Helena Gotto, your host, and today we have Ben Blondie. Welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you here to discuss your executive coaching and how you get people to live bigger lives.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here and excited to have a conversation with you today.
So when we spoke earlier, so Ben, tell us a little bit about your background so the audience can get an idea of who you are.
I've worked in corporate America, worked in contract managed services, So what we did is we provided services to corporate offices. I worked companies like Compass, Sodexo, and Aramark is where I've spent a lot of my career in corporate America. I've spent time working with nonprofits. And again, as an entrepreneur and business owner, as a coach and consultant. So, my work as a coach and consultant, what I do is I work with people who are who have a desire for something bigger in their life and want to see a bigger picture or have a bigger picture for their life. And what I do is I sit around and help them cast and clarify their vision. And then we create a plan that helps them go achieve it.
So what do you think stops people doing that by themselves?
I think we get caught in the daily grind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it pulls us back. We get caught just in the drudges of the day to day, and we lose that vision and those dreams we had when we were younger, or we get caught in something and say, I like part of this, so I'll stay here for a while. Or there's aspects of this job where I get to use some of my gifting and skills, and so I'll stay here and do it, or the check gets nice for a while. And those are pieces that we hold on to. And sometimes we forget that a job is an assignment. It's where we currently are in life. And it's something that's temporary and fleeting. And it's really not our identity or who we are, or really necessarily anything that we were supposed to use to define us. And
Let's
it just becomes, we create that comfort space with it.
And so let's speak a little bit about identity, because I do think that people find themselves caught up in their job as who they are. And I imagine that's a really big hurdle.
Yeah. And one of the first questions people tend to ask each other is, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
And for some, it's right creating that common ground and that comfort in a conversation. But over time, it very much can become that people will allow that to define them, if you will. And it's not, again, it's not who you are. It's not who you were made to be necessarily. It's an assignment. It's somewhere where you're going to grow and develop and hopefully provide for you and your family. But it's never designed to be that endpoint. And yeah.
So do you work with men and women, predominantly men, predominantly women?
It's a mix. Believe it or not, it's 50-50. I think for men, again, this can sound judgmental, but we get caught up in that job piece. And for us, it's sometimes being more vulnerable and willing to go back to those days of what did we dream about, or what do we really like to do? And how do we turn that into something that, and again, it doesn't have to be creating a business or leaving your job today. It could be finding a place to serve, or finding a place to just something that gives you an outlet that helps you create a legacy versus living out your resume.
So you went through this process yourself, from what I understand, that you were a corporate man and then you realized you really loved working with people to help them fulfill more of their potential and their dreams. So how did you do that? How did you transition through that from being a company man to being an entrepreneur?
So it's not easy. No, and even to some degree, I had to find a coach I could work with on some level, because you need a place to process, right? It's a lot there. You have to really spend a lot of time understanding who you are, what matters to you, what is your gifting and talent and skills, and what it is you can offer and do for people, right? And there's a big mindset shift going from employee to entrepreneur business owner, because yes, it's about income and revenue and those things, but it is a change in mindset as you move from, I am not an employee beholden to someone, but I'm beholden to myself and the people I work with and my clients. And there's some different boundaries you have to create as a business owner and an entrepreneur. You also have to become resourceful, where if you weren't, my gifting wasn't sales or accounting, going to either learning to do what I could on my own in the beginning, and then and then eventually getting to a point where I could find someone to do it for me. But as you work with people, they're trying to understand what it is their gifting is. And when you really get someone to a point where they go, wow, I've really hated the job I've been in for 10, 15 years. I've just tolerated it for this or for that, or because I created a box and it's really comfortable to sit in this box.
Mm.
And growth and change is hard. It's hard for everyone. That's partly why we stay where we are more than we should.
Yeah, I think I'm a mutant because I can't, I'm not good at staying in the box. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I feel like I have to, if I'm just uncomfortable, like it was like, ugh, I'm like, oh, I can't do that. Feel really uncomfortable about it.
Your brain, and that's fantastic, right? Because most times our brain is trained to keep us comfortable, right? And our brain doesn't like discomfort. That's some degrees in why people avoid conflict or addressing issues, because they have this comfort. And I don't want to do anything that your brain will try to keep you in a place that away from discomfort.
So if you could get uncomfortable with the comfort zone, if you get faster, that would be better.
Yes. Yes.
So how did this become your thing? What is it what's your background other than project management?
So I'm a really good listener. At least I've been told that, which is nice to hear. I'm also have a tendency of being a problem solver.
Mhm.
And I know that sounds vague, but where that's helped me is I got really good at hearing what people say, but also what they don't say.
Mm.
And as you sit with people and talk to people more and more, you start to get cues. You hear more, oh, they didn't mention that this is an issue, but they didn't mention that it wasn't when they went through their list of priorities. And so you learn maybe where to dig in. You learn where people have created some barriers and walls that they don't maybe necessarily want to go. And for me, it's really, I have this ability to balance between big picture and details,
Mhm.
where some people can just be visionaries and they have to sit in the big picture, or some people are very detail focused. I've my brain is just trained to go both ways. So I
Mm.
can sit there and on a whiteboard and vision cast with you, but then I'm also able to break away and say, okay, now here's the reasonable way of getting there, or here's what's possible today. And it's and you have to you have to not crush someone, because they may have this really big dream of a $25 million business. Or, okay, that's great. How do we get you have no money coming in today, how do we get you to $100,000? Or how do we get you to seven figures? And how do you break that down so that it becomes a scalable goal? And then understanding that what gets you to that $1 million today may not be what your business will need to get to 25 million down the road. And it's great to say you have this big vision, but how do we make it realistic to move forward so you don't get frustrated when it's not 25 million tomorrow?
So what's the profile of your typical client? Who seeks you out?
Usually people that may be tired of their 9 to 5, or it could just be people who are looking to start a business and they've been an employee all their life. How do I start a business? And you can, the beginning part is naming the business, getting your tax ID number, setting up a business banking account. Those are all things you can actually do in an hour. Get a business insurance if you need it. You can do all those things in an hour. But now you've done all that. Now what? And again, you got to remember, when you talk to someone, the mindset that got them here today is not going to change in 6 months, even if they start building a business. They have to untrain parts of that mindset, that comfortable piece, that has got them to where they are when you start working with them. So for me, it's a lot of people that are just seeking out something different and something bigger. And and again, it can be a number of different things.
So it sounds like the jump from being an employee to being an entrepreneur is like that the initial hurdle.
I think getting started for people is a hurdle. People have a fear of failure.
Oh
And
yeah.
right. And so there's this belief of what'll people say if it doesn't work? And at the end of the day, again, we all have responsibilities and priorities in our life. So you still got to manage to those things. But what happens if you don't do that thing? What happens if you just continue? The goal was never, I don't think, in a human being's life, was ever to just get to the end, retire, and then live out your days.
So I think a lot when you've got a job that you is meh, it's all right. It's not terrible, but it's that what you're giving up. So I think that be motivated by not losing what you've already got. I think that is what keeps people really stuck. And I think if as a transitioning from an employee to an entrepreneur, I think by doing it in a way that by the time you move, you've already got a sense of you've created enough that this loss doesn't feel so scary. Like the risk is taken out of that loss because you've already got this.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. And risk is that factor of, again, where you're trying to, you were comfortable here. And how do you keep yourself comfortable over here? And yes, there's the risk of losing things, there's the fear of failure and what will people say. But people know when you're sheltering yourself, when you're not being authentic.
Yeah.
Um, Something I heard about 2 months ago that I have begun to ask all my clients, or say to all my clients, look for where you belong and not where you fit in. They feel extremely similar, but being in a place where you belong allows you to be your authentic self,
Hmm.
which is when your true personality and joy and just who you were made to be will come out to people when you are where you belong and not just trying to fit in.
And some people are a lot better at fitting in than others.
I think we settle for fitting in,
Yeah.
whether it's the paycheck, the comfort, the title. People will respect me because this is what it is, and they settle versus getting to be their authentic self.
Well,
It's
yeah.
the mask that people wear because we feel we don't get to be ourselves.
That's really it's really interesting. I love the way that you've phrased that, where you belong and not where you fit in. I think I managed to find out where I belonged because I didn't fit in a lot of places. So I
That's
had to
fair.
find a place to belong.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some of us are just some people are really taught how to fit in. I'm doing it to my children at school, right? I got one kid, he does not fit in, and I don't know what to do with him.
I would tell you, you're right. You don't know what to tell them. And then you're trying to also create the space where they can belong. And I think that was different from something from a younger generation where it was, this is just how,
Right, fit
whether
in.
it's a school, a program, a curriculum, this is what it is. Whereas now there are more options, and it's being willing to explore those options for our kids or for ourselves or whatever, that really what is the best thing for them and what do they need to grow and develop. Because again, you don't want to squash who they were made to be and
Oh,
who their gifting and their talents.
oh, 100%. Okay, so tell us an inspirational story of someone who was fitting in and you worked with them and now they belong.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
gonna drop that on you, so you'll have to take a moment to think about it, probably
yeah.
running through the track. You can use different names and put them in, I don't know, change the details to protect the innocent.
Yeah, no, I will. So I had an employee from one of my corporate stops
Uh,
who I remember sitting there doing their performance evaluation on the year. And again, 4 or 5 years working under me as a direct report. And it hit this point of, this is all great, but is this what you want to keep doing? If it is, okay, right? If this is what makes you happy and gives you joy, and this person started walking down the line of the parts they like, but that they really don't get to do, but only here and there. And here's the pieces I don't like, which as you break out their job description were the majority of the job. And you get to this point of, so what you're telling me is you'd be better at this part and you'd like to be helping people do this and working with people through their needs on these things. And you get to the point of, this position doesn't exist with this company.
Mm.
99% sure it will never exist with this company. And then that shock and horror of this person who realized, oh no, I just talk myself out of my job? And then having to really sit there and dial back with them and say, no, look, let's step back. And as long as you're committed to what we're doing now, we'll work to develop those skills. And
Hang on a minute. So you were going to tell me a story about someone that you coached who you'd worked with for 4 years, and you took them from a place of kind of fitting in and no, fuck it, I'm going to start that again. And what, let me just wonder what are we at with the time so I can know when to. So Ben Blondie, I love the last name Blondie, by the way, because I loved Blondie. Who didn't love Blondie?
right,
Well,
exactly.
she's still alive, but I won't say loved. Who doesn't love Blondie? Tell us a story about someone that you've worked with, because you were talking about being in a place of fitting in and rather than being in a place of belonging. And I think that would be a nice inspirational story.
Yeah. When I was still in corporate America, I remember doing a performance review with someone, and they had been working for me for about 4 years. And as we went through their performance review, they had great numbers, and it was like, you've been doing this. Do you want to keep doing this? At that point of, it's great if you want to stay here. Is this all you want out of life? And as this person got talking and talking about the things they like versus the things they don't like, the things they like were only things they got to do a little bit. The things they didn't like was the majority of their job description, but they had just made it comfortable enough between a paycheck and benefits and life, and but it really didn't give them any joy.
Mm.
And you could see it because when they got to do the things they didn't get to do often because the job didn't require it, their personality was different. They had a different level of excitement. And so there was also this shock as they realized that they were basically saying, what I really want to go do doesn't exist here and probably will never exist here. And what does that mean now? And then having to calm down. We're all good. You're not going anywhere tomorrow. Not putting up a job requisition for you. And so what we really did was I spent time with that person to guide them in continuing to hone and get to do more of what they like to do. Still be good at their job, at what they did and the things they didn't like to do. Maybe not excel, but still do it. Give them the ability to hone and with their passions and their what they really enjoyed. And then eventually that person went and found the job that they had always wanted to do and got to go work with people in a different capacity and help them and guide them and teach them almost more, which is where they got their energy. And it just changed. There was a completely different personality.
I think that is such an indicator for people who are not sure, what do I do, what I want to do, that tapping into those things that you do that like make you come to life. And if
Yeah.
that, even just the saying come to life, people that sit in these jobs that don't make them come to life, it's devastating. And to be able to find something that, and that's what you were meant to do, because it's life force is just coming out of you.
Yes. And I would tell you if you have questions about what those things are, some of them, look at your history of jobs or where you've served, if you've served at nonprofits or some of those things. because generally there's a pattern.
Mhm.
And it's because there was something enough there when you either interviewed or worked there or did, all the way maybe back to some of your jobs in high school, that you said, "Oh, I like to get to do this." And you followed that pattern all along.
I had that with negotiation and mediation when I went to business school, and I was in, like, we were negotiating a fake mocked
Yeah.
negotiation, and it was like a 4-hour session. I remember thinking, "Oh my god, this is gonna be so painful, 4 hours," and it just went like that, and I came out of that thing, I was like, "My god, I could have just sat in there and it was like time just was suspended." I could
Yeah.
have I was so focused, I was so in it. And that was when I discovered, oh, that's what I love, just being tapped. I don't know what it is. It's focused outside yourself, trying to solve a problem when there's
Yeah.
a high stakes problem. That's what I come alive doing.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And like you said, it's those moments where you go, "Oh yeah, that's what I like to do. And that's where I get joy. And those are the pieces I like. And how do I get to go do more of that?"
Yes. I was at a conference and a woman was talking about that, about how there are some things that you are just better than everybody else at. There's just a few things. And if you can identify those things and spend most of your time doing those things, and then all the other things, the things that you're terrible at, not so good at, and pretty good at, but not better than most people. If you can farm all those other things out, and maybe some of the things that you're good at, but not better than others, you can develop those to rise up to that level of being. And if you spend your life doing that, then you're really going to make an impact. And I think we were taught to try to be good at everything, right? Oh, you're not good here, so let's develop you there, as opposed to you're brilliant over here, let's just keep you over here.
Yes. And between that and then telling a lot of 18-year-olds they have to have life figured out at 18,
Oh yeah, that's terrifying.
that's the other thing we've done
Mm,
is, and they're still trying to figure out who they are.
yes. Yeah. At least people don't have to pick a career for life anymore. I think
Right.
that's definitely the new normal.
There's a lot more flexibility and that ability to move.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I know your website is givehopeproject.com.
Yeah.
And why is it called givehopeproject.com?
I think hope is a vision for something better.
Mhm.
And for me, it was allowing people to have a glimpse of hope when, again, I've been stuck in the 9 to 5. I've been in the rut of the daily grind, and it's not fun. And again, you hate to say people lose hope, but after a while, it's real easy to say this is just what life is. But hope is a vision for something better.
Thank you for bringing hope. And it's been lovely chatting with you today.
Thank you too.